Welcome back to Built to Ship, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with founders and product leaders, shipping real AI features into the world. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Zach. He's the CPO at Extendly, a company that helps businesses automate, customize, and extend their marketing and CRM workflows. But I'm sure Zach could explain it better. Zach, thanks for coming on. Excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Let's
Awesome.
do it.
Sweet. So yeah, let's start
This is
with
great.
why does Extendly exist? What problem are you solving, and who are examples of like your type of customer, people who would use Extendly?
Yeah, for sure. I would say Extendly exists predominantly because, it just and as a little bit of background. So we work primarily with marketing agencies that are using the Go High Level platform, and so Go High Level is like a pretty big CRM. Most people compare it to HubSpot or Salesforce in size. But they're kind of the new kid on the block, or High Level is, so to speak. They've not been around that long, but they carved out kind of a specific niche for agencies, I would say, just because the way they built their platform being heavily focused on multi-tenancy, and so it worked out really well for marketing agencies in terms of how they could monetize and charge, and but from day one, in High Level land, their support model has been what I kind of compare. It's similar to like Google versus Apple with like iPhones and Android phones. That's what tell people a lot is High Level. They um, they do have some support for marketing agency owners, like limited support, but they have no support for marketing agency owners' customers, if that makes sense. So
Mm-hmm.
the whole High Level platform is built on kind of this white label model, where marketing agencies can make the platform look like it's their own platform. And so from day one, in the High Level world, there's been a demand for support, and kind of white label support and customer success for the High Level platform specifically. So we've been fortunate enough to be kind of one of the early people inside of one of the early companies, I should say, inside of the High Level ecosystem. And so we've kind of just been tracking with their growth. As they've been growing, we've been growing. We've been offering support for, you know, agencies and their customers for several years now. So that's what Extendly does, and that's kind of the void we fill in the High Level space, if that makes sense.
Amazing. No, that's super helpful and really clear. And it sounds like, you guys are benefiting from High Level's growth, but they're probably also some of that growth is powered because you guys are actually servicing their customers that they can't, meet where they need this service. So, what
For
brought
sure.
you to Extendly? Like, why did you join the team, and what got you excited about the role?
Yeah, so I've been doing product and technology for, most of my career at this point in time for quite a while, and I was in the corporate world. I was working for Sprint, like many years ago, and then I was specifically on the Virgin Mobile brand. So when Sprint and T-Mobile merged, there was like a lot of collateral damage as part of that, merger, and so they ended up deciding to fold the entire Virgin brand, and at that point in time, and so when that whole transition happened, that's when I decided to start my own company and venture out, and so I started doing some kind of ad hoc at that time. Product consulting and management consulting for various different companies. And then, to make a long story short, that was around the time that High Level was starting as a platform. So I started to catch word of, this new platform, High Level. They're kind of, they had some people's ears. I'll put it that way. And so I went into the High Level space, and I just kind of started to play around, and I ended up starting a marketing agency, and then I ended up working with other marketing agencies, kind of helping them with the platform, and then the founder of Extendly, and myself, we met and became friends quickly, and so I know we're talking about AI today, so kind of how we ended up becoming friends is we launched an AI product together early,
Wow.
to a bunch of people in the High Level space, and this was before Chat GPT came out, so we were just using uh, the earlier OpenAI endpoints to automate review responses.
Hmm.
And high level had nothing like that in the platform at the time. So we ended up doing that together, and that was kind of like a JV, and it went really well. And so then we decided we liked working together, and that was kind of how we ended up working together at Extendly, and the rest has just been history. So
Amazing. That's always great when you actually have an opportunity to work with, other execs or founders, or, if folks are finding co-founders for a new startup, if you've actually worked together before on something, kind of proves out like the chemistry, proves out, your ability, how you work as a team, etc. I always hear these stories about, people starting companies together and they didn't know each other at all. And 2 months in, there's like a messy co-founder breakup or something like that. And so it's awesome that you have that experience actually shipping something that delighted your users. And yeah, so what has
yeah.
happened since then? Like how has Extendly expanded? You guys were early to using, AI in this space, and now what have you done beyond the reviews automation? I'm sure there's more than that.
Yeah, so a lot of those features are now just like in the earlier days of Extendly, we would do stuff like that and kind of augment high levels platform. You know, high level since the beginning has had a pretty flexible front end in terms of your ability to bring, for example, like extra menu items like into their main navigation. So it's for years there, it's been common to have these kind of little utilities that people would build, some larger utilities as well, that sort of augment what they're doing, and eventually they'll catch up and they'll kind of do that thing themselves. And so that like narrative has happened over and over and over again, even with stuff that we've built. We'll do it and then they'll do it and then we'll do it and then they'll do it. And so they have all the automated review stuff built into the platform now and everything. But the one area that they, at least so far, that they haven't um been interested in kind of monopolizing, I should say, like in that regard, is everything that we've done on the support side. And so support has just continued to grow, as more and more people come onto the platform. And now they have high level as a pretty big international footprint as well. And so we run a 24/7 support operation. We have,
Wow.
a decent size human agent team that runs 24/7 all time zones. And so over the last, couple years here, we, just with the sheer size of the support operation and like how much high level it has grown, and the number of customers that we have in our ecosystem. So, more or less, we have at this point in time, around 500,000 end businesses that we run support for
Wow.
through our agency partners on high level. So as far as like a human support operation, we started to get to the point where we were just like, this is unbearable in terms of it's not as much the problem with support, and this is probably true for like any other heavy human resources company, is they, or at least a human resources driven product, is the growth curve is not like very linear, and or the demand curve rather is not very linear. So like specifically in the high level space, what this means is like we could be totally fine on any given day on our support queue. High level comes out with a new feature, or Cloudflare has some
Mhm.
downtime, or something like that happens, and we see massive spikes, because at any given point in time, we might have 2 or 3% of the total people that are accessing or that could access support actually on like support chats and doing stuff like that. But if anything causes those numbers to increase, and then that happens at the same time, then that can just be kind of like a detrimental
Mm.
spike, and people are just waiting on hold times forever. And so
And for some
that's when,
businesses, like, support is a bit of an afterthought, even though it shouldn't be. But for you guys, this is like this is your bread and butter. So it's super important that you're there when these things happen. Is that right?
yeah. And I think, with some platforms, like I guess more like small SaaS platforms that are really scoped into like one particular problem that they're solving, where the UX is just really easy, you could say that maybe the demand for support is less as well. In high levels case, and probably similar to like a Salesforce, it's like you have such a huge toolbox of just about anything that you can do. and it's initially like a blank canvas for people. And so uh, if support isn't there, people just they churn out, to be honest. Like it's just it's a huge cognitive overhead for most people just getting into the platform brand new. So yeah, so that's where support kind of becomes like an essential part.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's our whole bread and butter. And so, the difference between like, getting to if you need to talk to a human, getting to speak to somebody in like a minute versus, 45 minutes or an hour is like oftentimes the difference between someone like churning out of the platform or not.
Mm.
Um,
So
especially if that's like their first experience coming into support and they have to wait like an hour or something. It's just, they're not going to do that.
totally, yeah, and they, you know, I'm sure they associate that experience with Go High Level, or with High Level, directly. Like, hey, I can't figure this thing out, and I can't get support. Like, I'm just not happy with this product. So you're mentioning this like lumpy curve of it's not like every day you get the exact same number of support requests. I'm guessing, maybe jumping ahead a bit, I'm going to make a guess that the solution for how you handled some of that was AI automations, was agents. Can you tell us a bit
Yeah.
more, maybe at a high level, like, do you have 5 different bots? Is there like a reviewer agent and triage agent, etc.? Those are some architectures we've seen. Some people have one agent that does it all. How do you
Mhm.
actually? What are the use cases, and how do you architect and connect those together?
Yeah, so, probably much like everyone else when we first started the AI project, it was, and I'll speak for myself, like I was pretty uh even being someone that used AI for a lot of other stuff, like, you mentioned Chat GPT and like we were automating review responses, and so things that were more static, but something that was highly conversational. I was pretty pessimistic that we would be able to see any numbers that were meaningful
Hmm.
on the support side. And so yes, we just started playing around. Initially, it was kind of like an experimentation project. We just started playing around with various different, initially just chat bots on the front end. And so that was probably like about 2 years ago now, was like our first chat bot, like on the support side. So initially it was pretty rough, and it was just kind of like customer question, immediate response from the AI. So no like built up context or anything like that, no memory and thread, nothing, just kind of like more functioning like a search would, just like a, request response type format. And so then, over the last 2 years, we've just went way deeper, kind of month over month over month. And so we started working on the conversational flows, just um, trying to make them more human. And so initially, the flow is like a huge priority in conversation, and then we started working on the memory side, so short term and long term memories just in thread. So so I had some context on what we were talking about before. Just like when you're in Chat GPT, and you're talking, and it's just like if every single message like felt like a new message, it was just like what's
Yeah.
the point, like it's kind of. And so we started working on that, and then it was like slowly starting to feel kind of like more like, hey, we're having a conversation with the human. But one of the parts that's taken us the longest to figure out was there's something that humans do. So when you go to a support interaction with a human, uh and it took me even a while to just kind of like put language to this, but there's a triaging thing that they do that's very kind of like like driven by not necessarily like a rigid SOP, but more kind of like a gut related thing where, you'll have a support agent and then you'll have someone come in. And so you might have someone ask something pretty basic. So support agent says, like, we don't really know kind of what they mean yet. And so then we're going to ask for clarifying,
Mm.
information. So then they will provide some clarifying information. And so then, but in high level, there's all sorts of different ways to slice a pie. There's not just one way to slice a pie. So for example, someone could say like, well, I want to send birthday reminders to uh, my customers. And so it's like, okay, is there just one customer that you're wanting to do this with, like right now? Is this something that you're wanting to do like over and over again, like on autopilot? So Are you wanting to just do like a batch thing right now to anybody that has a birthday today? Like, so there's a lot of like clarifying information that you have to ask for to figure out like what exactly are they trying to do? Are they trying to do it in the SMS channel or on the email channel or like, and so agents, like real human agents, will just do this with people. They'll just ask for more information until their brain feels satisfied that I know what it is that this person's trying to do. Like I have clarity enough to prescribe rather a solution. And so us getting the AI to do that was like that's been like a year-long journey, to be honest. Like that's what we've been working on the last year is just the triage process. So to answer your earlier question, like now, yeah, we have a pretty, I guess, like advanced workflow of lots of agents that are kind of working together. And that's like this kind of like this team of agents working together. So the flow kind of looks like this, and feel free to stop me at any point in time here, but the flow basically looks like somebody comes in and asks a question, and then we have a triage agent kind of at the very beginning. The triage agent's responsible for figuring out first what kind of policy is going to be deployed. So inside of high level, for example, we could have the agency owner asking questions, or we could have their customer asking questions. And the way that we answer those questions is going to be totally different based on that. We also, if it is the customer, there's a multi-tenancy layer, and some customers don't have access to the same information that other customers do. The agency owner might have certain features in the platform turned off and things like that. So we have to know, what do we even have access to talk about? And so we have our own support widget. We pass all that data in to the agent from the widget. And so then the AI basically does this kind of like policy check thing, like what do we even have to talk about? The next thing it does is it goes to kind of like an ontology discovery agent. And that agent's job is to figure out like how much do we know about what they're asking about so far. And AI will always try to prescribe, like it'll always try to give you an answer unless you intentionally tell it to not. And so the ontology agent's job is to basically take a memory, like a short-term memory of what is happening in that conversation so far, and match it up with like an ontology of the platform, and figure out if we have kind of like a full match on what they're asking about, like end to end. So do we know what feature they're talking about? Do we know what product inside high level they're talking about? And do we know kind of in the context of that feature what they're talking about? And if we don't get check boxes on all of those things, then we need to like gather additional information. So go ahead.
I want to highlight that because I think that's pretty important and a pretty unique. I'm sure, like you said, it took you guys a year to develop this. There's so many buzzwords in the space right now, and while I regret to use them, sometimes it does help when everyone knows them. Like to tie some analogies together. So what it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, this ontology agent is really doing context engineering for you, where it's figuring out what is relevant to give to the main, let's say, user interaction agent or that support bot. Instead of the support bot just kind of making stuff up or trying to answer every single question right away without the right context. A lot of people are trying to figure out, how much of the previous message history should I show to my bot? How much information about the customer do I show? And in your case, it's even more complex. It's what features of the product they're asking about, pull information about those features or decide if the question's about said feature. And it's kind of smart. You guys are using an agent to do that context engineering. It's not just in code because you need it to be more dynamic. There's an agent who's like choosing what context to feed to the main bot. Am I getting that right?
No, yeah, you are 100%. And in fact, right now we're building an MCP layer on top of that particular agent, just so it's even more sort of dynamic than it is currently. But yeah, the first pass, to your point on the context side, was kind of like more of a hard coded approach, and it just wasn't dynamic enough. And then the other issue is more just like a latency and a speed related thing. So like this agent happens, typically interactions with this agent happen before we do any RAG, and so that just saves us a lot of time in the workflow. Like if we're having to like hit the knowledge base over and over and over again, then we come back, it's like, oh, that's not what we're looking for. then we ask the user more questions, then it takes even longer. It's like just the wait times become ridiculous for the agent to respond and thread. And so this kind of helps because the ontology side is just, it's quicker, it's more lightweight. And so then we can figure out what part of the knowledge base we even need to query as well, and kind of like restrict the search space a little bit, which makes that process go faster also. So
awesome. Okay, this is, I mean, really insightful and helpful, I'm sure, for the audience to have this like new pattern way of thinking of using it, instead of just programmatic context engineering, there's like agentic context engineering. Before we have to wrap up, I want to now ask like maybe the next question, which is, okay, you've advanced the capabilities of your agent, you've made it work better. Now your customers can get better answers. They can ask probably more questions than they were able to with V1. But now it sounds like a complex system. You've got like multiple agents, you've got multiple tools it can call. Now you're going to add MCP and even more tools. How do you, or have you solved this yet? Because a lot of people are struggling with it. So, you're in good company if not. How do you see like, do you have a layer of analytics or evaluation on top of all this system to see like, hey, what are the things my customers are asking about? Where are they getting stuck still? Because I'm sure there's still improvements you can make to the agents in the context. Are tool calls failing, etc. Do you have any tools or methods or processes you're using for this combination of like monitoring, analytics, and evaluation for this, advanced system that you guys have built?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, we have a few different layers of sort of like telemetry, and I mean the most important thing. So before we get into any of the AI stuff, we have some controls just on the widget level of our application that can kind of like bypass if needed, like a lot of the agentic stuff. So if things just really start like falling apart and our our workflows were to catastrophically fail and stuff, we have some sort of switches. We use actually a feature flag system for this. They're kind of like almost like the big red handle that you see like on the wall. Like we have a few feature flags like that we can control. Like if stuff just starts going haywire, we can just pull one of those levers and sort of like bypass like our agentic flows and go straight to humans, just as like a note.
That's
so
smart.
I
Is
think
that for the
that's
whole system, or is that like on individual, like it's dynamic on individual conversations? If something's going wrong, it turns off.
we can do it. So we have like a lot of filtering on those flags. So we can do it like per access level, per plan, per like user group, per like, so if we're running like certain tests, like in certain user groups and stuff, and those are failing, and we just need to, so we actually, so we've had this happen a few different times where something was just going wrong in the agentic flows and we couldn't actually totally pinpoint what it was, and we had to just shut it down and bypass it. But anyways, back to your question. So we use Mixpanel for a lot of telemetry, and Mixpanel is great if it's not like a super high frequency scenario. Like some of the AI flows, like it's just crazy, like with every single message. If you're going to fire off Mixpanel events, like the cost is just astronomical. So we've started storing a lot of those high frequency events ourselves, just and then using Grafana basically as a layer on top of that to kind of visualize what's happening. But we have like all the top level events in our flows. Like for example, one of the most important events that we track all the time is human rollover. So like conversation starts, like does it roll over to a human? So kind of like that's how we get our resolution rate. So we're always looking at the resolution rate. So if something starts to look like it's significantly off at the resolution rate, like those top level events, or we also monitor just the flows between agents as a top level event. So for example, if we're just seeing like a lot of loops, like in our agent flows where it keeps going back to triage agent over and over and over again, and we're never hitting the solution agent. So we just try to spot kind of like abnormalities and patterns and Mixpanel that are like top line like that. And then if there's issues from there, we drill into the detailed data in Grafana to kind of figure out like okay, it's why are we going back to the triage agent over and over again? We have all of our message logs and everything like that, so we can figure out, in the tooling, what's a lot of in our flows. Agents hand off to agents,
Mm-hmm.
and so the other thing we've started doing is having agents. And this is just telemetry we keep for ourselves. But when agents hand off to other agents, we make the agents explain themselves, which is
Nice.
kind of funny. Just like, why did you hand off to that agent? And then we just store all of that, so that way we have some logs we can look back on. So it's not just totally a black box.
It's fascinating. So. I could keep asking you more questions on all of what you guys have built, and maybe we'll have to have you on for another episode in the future. But I think just to summarize, and then I want to throw your website up on the screen so everyone can check out Extendly. Number one, you had to design a new agent architecture that allowed for more advanced question answering. You have an agentic context engineering system. And on top of that, the architecture you designed actually kind of lends itself to make it easier for you on terms of like monitoring and analytics, because you have an agent that does triage, hands off to the solutions agent. You can more easily measure in a traditional tool, even if it's not purpose built like Mixpanel for LLMs. You now have like these checkpoints that you can track.
Exactly.
That's pretty interesting how the actual like architecture of the system also lends itself to the alerting and monitoring as well. Like I said, Zach, I'd love to ask more there, but we're at time.
No
so
worries.
let me put Extendly up on the screen, and I'd love to ask you how can folks follow along with Extendly? Who are the types of people that you guys really help serve? If they happen to be in the audience, how can they get in contact?
Yeah, I mean, we're myself, our CTO Sergio. Both of us are happy to connect with anyone that has questions about the stuff that we're doing, and even if they're not in the high level space, but they just want to nerd out on AI. Like, we're deep in all this stuff, and we're pumped about it. Like, we get excited about chatting with folks about all this stuff. So you can always just hit us up on LinkedIn, and we'll talk with anybody. And then, yeah, of course, if you're in the high level space and you're running a marketing agency or doing anything like that, then we're your folks. We want to be your partners in that space. So
amazing, awesome. Well, I've got to say to everyone listening, definitely take Zach up on that. It's very generous and very helpful to have a community of like other people who are building, especially with what you guys have actually accomplished and how much time you've invested. So if you are building something and you're running into issues, hopefully this doesn't flood you too much, Zach, but people reach out because you guys have spent over a year to 2 years developing this stuff, and maybe it can save other people some headache. Once again, appreciate you coming on, Zach, and wish we had more time, but thanks again. And definitely looking forward to keeping in touch and seeing what else you guys build.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate that, man. Thanks for having me on, Tyler. And yeah, hope to do another one with you in the future. So
awesome. Same here. Bye now.